Hello everybody, welcome back to Read and Reread. I am Angelia, and today, believe it or not, it is time for the Mid-Year Freakout Tag. Yes, we are getting into the later stage of June, and it is time to take stock of the reading experience thus far this year. So I took a look back at what I did last year in this tag when I had not even been on the channel very long, and it was pretty fun to take a second look at what I was excited about, and I stand by my answers. So I will put that video down below in case you would like to have a nostalgic look at that old video. And I will mention that this tag was created by someone who is no longer on YouTube, and I do not have the name. I looked through a couple other ones that came out this week, and I could not find the name of the original YouTuber. But I thank this person because their tag is immortal and we are still having fun with it. Also, another little disclaimer or piece of business: if you hear a loud rumbling noise, it's not on right now, but it will return. That is the air conditioner, because the outdoor unit is right outside this room, and something has gotten loose in the casing or something. When it comes on, it sounds like there is a huge dump truck just idling right outside the window. But the alternative is worse, because it is something ungodly, like 99 with a heat index of 120. What even is that with the heat index? Because 99, like that wasn't going to emphasize it enough. You had to throw in the, oh, but it'll feel like it's 120. Is that going to somehow modify my planned activities? Like, I was going to go out and run for 3 hours because it was only 99, but now that it's 120, I'm gonna tone it down. I don't know. It's hot, people. It's really, really hot. So whatever loud noises come on, they are life support systems, so just ignore. Let's move on to the tag. All right, number 1, best book you've read so far. Of course, I will be cheating throughout this video because I can't ever boil it down to one thing. So I immediately thought of 7 or 8 things, but I have narrowed it down to 3, okay? So please praise me for my restraint. Of course, this one's not a big surprise. Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. I love this book. Many others have loved it. It's winning prizes right and left. I think she deserves them. I know not everybody loves this book, but I really was. This book I love so much that halfway through I got scared. I was so worried about Demon and how things were going, and I didn't know how dark it would get. I had not read David Copperfield at that point, and when you get stranded in the middle of a book because you're so wrapped up in the welfare of a character and so frustrated with his choices and the things that are happening to him beyond his control, then you were in the middle of a good book. But fear not, I made it through, and you will too if you have not read this wonderful tale, a recasting of David Copperfield in modern day Appalachia. Actually, about around the 90s is when the story takes place. Also, I want to mention The Night Ship by Just Kidd. This was the first book, and this launched my current ongoing obsession with Just Kidd. And this too, this one has not gotten enough talk and buzz, and I want everybody to give it a try. But it is also, and look how pretty it is. This is a story that takes place in 2 timelines. One is in the 1980s and one is in the 1600s. And there is a boy and a girl, Gil and Macon, and they are running, the storylines are parallel in 2 time periods, and then there's a tiny bit of how they actually intersect. And I'm not making it sound very good, but one takes place in 1629 on a ship heading for the Dutch East Indies, and the other one is in 1989, a boy named Gil on an isolated fishing island off the coast of Australia. And it is absolutely beautiful. Also, How High We Go in the Dark by Sequoia Nagamatsu. And this one is interconnected stories that form a novel, and you have to really read the entire thing to the end to really feel how it could come together and be thought of as a novel. It's science fiction, it's speculative, it takes place during and after a horrible pandemic, and it is many different reflections on the experience of grief, how we process it, how we survive it, how we sometimes monetize it. It is also a very intricately crafted science fiction tale. So that is what I picked for my best books so far. The second question, I've got them over here, so that's what I'm looking at. Best sequel you've read so far. Parable of the Talents by Octavia Butler. This is the sequel to Parable of the Sower, which I read a few months ago, and then this one I read a few months ago in 2022. Where are we now? 2023. I read this one just more recently in 2023, and it blew me away with how prescient Butler was about things taking place right now in our current times. Even though she wrote this book back in, when was this? In the 90s? 2000? No, 1998. So you really have to start with Parable of the Sower, but this was an amazing sequel. The book was actually more powerful than the first one, but the two of them together, absolutely quintessential science fiction reading if you like speculative tales. The third question is a new release you have not read yet, but you want to, and for that I'm going to pick Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. I was not previously interested especially in her fantasy novels. I know some people are giant fans of them, but they just didn't call out to me. But when this book came out, I was intrigued, and the more and more I've heard people reviewing it, the more I want to read it. Because at first I was afraid that I've read too many books with the stolen manuscript plot or the stolen writer's identity plot, and some of them were kind of goofy, and so I thought, I feel like I've been on this road, but I've been convinced by the strength of the reviews about the different issues tackled in this book and the different layers, and so now I do want to read it for myself. My library is in their incredibly slow process. Apparently, if you've ever seen, what movie was that where the sloths are running the DMV? I think that's who's processing books in the back room at the library. It was a kid's movie. I'll put the name up here once I figure it out. But that's who I picture working in the back room at the library, because they'll put in there like a teaser in the catalog that the book is in the works, and it'll go on for months. It makes me insane. All right, but let's move on. Like I don't have anything to read in the meantime. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year. All right, there are two big ones coming up for me just this summer that I'm so excited about, and I've probably mentioned them like multiple times already, but it is Crook Manifesto by Colson Whitehead, coming out in July. I'm planning to reread Harlem Shuffle really soon, to read it right before I read that, because it is a sequel. I think it takes place 10 or 20 years later after the first one, and I can't wait to get to it. And then in August, Ann Patchett's new book, Tom Lake, is coming out, and it is supposedly another one of her family sagas. I think she really excels at that, so I'm really looking forward to that as well. I'm sure there are some books coming out later on in the year. Oh, Jessamine Ward has one coming out that I'm excited to read, and I forgot the title, but I'll put it up here on the screen. And then I don't know what else is coming out. I'm not really good at following that very closely and way in advance, so I know that other things are going to delightfully surprise me as they are coming up on the schedule. Number 5 is Biggest Disappointment. Okay, hang on. I have two answers. The first one is The Longest Journey by Ian Forster. I am following the Ian Forster read-along this year, and I'm really enjoying it. It has been really fun to read or reread these books along the way, but this one, for me, was a major clunker, and it lived up to its name, and I got about 100 pages in, and I just laid down upon the hill and expired in the field of lovely flowers, and I couldn't go any further. The other co-dud for me was Liberation Day by George Saunders, which was a bit of a white whale, even though I had not yet made that video at that point, as I had not read any, and this was the first thing I read by him. And I read about 3/4 of the stories and DNF'd after that, and they just weren't it for me. They were too predictable and too fiddly. Like I could see the man behind the curtain. I could see the gears, and I don't know. I didn't like them. Okay, I didn't like them. Biggest surprise? Well, Ian Forster redeemed himself, because although he produced one of my biggest flops, he also produced the best surprise, and that was his short story, The Machine Stops. It is available, I think, at Project Gutenberg. I'll double check. But it is a speculative story written in the year very early 1900s, and it catapulted up into being one of my favorite short stories. I was so surprised at the content, the themes, the foresight in this kind of longish short story. And he didn't write a lot of speculative type stories, but this is really his only science fiction story. He wrote a couple other weird kind of Twilight Zone-y sort of stories that are in the Celestial Omnibus, but this one was just a jewel, and just talking about it now, I want to go take another crack at it. And I'm definitely going to include it in Shorty September when I get to that project where I read 30 different stories by 30 different authors in September. Some of them are new, some of them are rereads, but that one I'm definitely putting on the schedule for that, because I want to take a closer look at it, another look. So that was the best surprise. Number 7 is favorite new author, debut, or new to you. But you know what I'm gonna say? Yep, it's my gal Jess Kidd again. I've read 3 of her 4 novels now. I started with The Night Ship, which is her most recent. Then I went back to her second book, Mr. Flood's Last Resort. Most recently, I read Things in Jars, and the one I have left is her first book, which is called Himself. I'm going to read it very soon. I love this author. I love her unusual plots. She is absolutely a master at interesting characters, especially the secondary characters. There's somebody just memorable that you fall in love with in every single story. And the way, just her word choices and her descriptions. Every time a new character walks in, just sit down and get a snack, because she's going to just take a couple of paragraphs to describe this person in detail. And you never get that thing where you're halfway through a book and then all of a sudden there's a detail where you're thinking, I've pictured this person all wrong. I didn't know that at all. That never happens when you're reading a Jess Kidd book. Now, if that kind of thing aggravates you, like too much detail, then maybe you won't love it, but I certainly do. I love all 3 of the ones I've read, so I have no fear that this last one will also be another winner. So Jess Kidd is my favorite new author. Is number 8, which is newest fictional crush, and I don't have one. That's just not really a thing for me. I don't know. I get it, but I have not experienced that, at least not recently. Although it has cracked me up. I've been watching a few other of these freakout tags this week, and the number of people who chose a non-human crush was pretty funny. Characters from fantasy novels that aren't actually people, but that's okay. Love is love. So I'm passing on fictional crush, and instead I'm gonna change the question to favorite reread, because my channel is read and reread. My favorite reread so far this year is Station 11. Yes, taking another chance to carry on and on and on about Station 11. Probably just because I haven't reread Catcher in the Rye yet this year. Otherwise, that would have won. So I'm rereading her 3 most recent books, and this one, it just, I don't know, I loved it the first time, but this time it reached a new level of resonance in my soul, and I really, really loved reading this book again. As soon as I got to the end, I felt sad that I was done, and then I knew that I will read it another time. Number 9 is newest favorite character. Well, I just mentioned a moment ago that I love the characters in Jess Kidd books, especially her secondary characters. And they really are wonderful. But I want to add a little variation in my answer. So I want to talk about a couple of characters from Demon Copperhead. Now, Demon, of course, is unforgettable. Love his voice, love his humor, love his resilience in this story. But my favorite character in the book is Angus. And I don't want to say too much about Angus because not everybody has read Demon Copperhead, but Angus was my favorite character, and I love the reimagining of Angus from the source character of David Copperfield. I feel like this person got a massive glow-up, do-over, and they are much more compelling, interesting, funny, important in Demon Copperhead. So I'm going to go with Angus as my favorite character so far this year. Number 10 is a book that made you cry or the saddest book that you have read. I'm not a big book crier, but a couple of books immediately came to mind. I have one of them here. Whoops. It's Elena Knows by Claudia Pinheiro. Beautiful story about a woman with severe Parkinson's disease making a very slow trip. It's all in one day, and she's traveling across the city to find someone that she thinks will help her investigate the death of her daughter that she doesn't believe was a suicide. And it is a heart-wrenching story. It is so good. It's very sad. And the other winner of the award I read more recently, and I can't really get into the details because I'm judging it for the Booktube prize, but it was Young Mungo by Douglas Stewart. And that's all I can say because of the vow of silence with the judges, but it is an extremely sad story. A book that made you happy. So I'm not sure if that means you just felt good reading it, a feel-good book, or a book that's funny. So I kind of picked one of each. And the feel-good book is Persuasion by Jane Austen. This was a reread. I love this novel. The ending uplifts me every time. Captain Wentworth writes the best letter in literary history. So that's my feel-good book. And then the one that was the funniest was The Peacock by Isabel Bogdan. And reading this made me realize I need to read more books that are funny. You know what? The Guncle also was funny and sad. I could have used that in both categories, but I just now thought of it. So honorary mention to the Guncle, qualifying for 2 categories. But The Peacock was very funny if you just want a book that will make you laugh. Number 12 is favorite book to film adaptation you saw this year. I cannot answer this. The only thing that even comes to my mind was something that we DNF'd, which was Silo. But, you know, I kind of avoid these. And even though June was the month in the Forster read-along to watch film adaptations, but the problem is that the 2 that I'd really like to see the movie again, I want to read the book first because I've forgotten enough parts of the plot that I would like to have the reading experience again and then watch the movie. So I'd like to see Howard's End and Morris again. I'd seen A Room with a View kind of recently in the past year or 2, so I didn't rewatch that right now. So that one's kind of on hold. But I think if I do watch one of those movies later this year, they will probably be a favorite adaptation because I remember them being good movies. Number 13 is a favorite review that you've written this year, or for booktubers, a favorite video that you've done this year. I've enjoyed so many of them, but I think I'm going to say the song tag. And that one was just, it was so fun to put together. And that is the one that has bothered me ever since, where I can't stop thinking of alternative answers. I am constantly thinking of other songs that fit the prompts of the song tag. And a lot of people have done it too. And it's fun to just go song tag hunting and see what other people have to say. But that one has never left my consciousness ever since I did it. So for that reason, I will pick it as my favorite, although I guess I could also pick it as my least favorite because it won't go away. Number 14 is most beautiful book you've bought so far or received. And I did that tag about the beautiful covers recently, but most of those I had bought prior to this year. I did just get this at a library book sale, and I've always loved the cover of this book. I'll be showing it again in an upcoming haul video, but I loved it when I first read it, and I guess it was a library book, and I wanted my own copy when I saw it at the book sale, and I want to reread it. And that is The Known World. Now, I did not notice until I was pulling the book out for this video that they sold an advanced reader's copy in this library book sale. But maybe they didn't notice it either because I didn't see it at first. But it has this vintage photograph, these old maps, and this one is really nice for an ARC. It's got deckled edges and French flaps. It's really quite a nice presentation. And so I'm happy to have it, even though it wasn't supposed to be for sale. And it's mine now, and I think it has a lovely cover. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? Well, I think need is a little strong of a word. There's books that I would like to read, some that I feel more strongly about than others. Anything I've mentioned in a video recently, the Why Haven't I Read These Books, and the White Whales, and the new releases, and the rereads that I really feel strongly of wanting to get back to them. None of them don't really need to read. It's more that I just need to be reading, and then from there go by my moods. If you've been watching long enough, you know that I do participate in a lot of themes on the different months, but I rarely follow my entire outline. I just kind of like to have a plan, and then I wing it from there. That was how my teaching career was too. I made lesson plans that were outlines, but it wasn't Texas. I never stuck to them all the way. I like to plan, and I like to have more material than I can possibly use. And then I like to improvise and do my own thing. So that's the way I travel. That's the way I plan a trip. That's the way I plan my reading. That's the way I used to do my teaching. And I shall continue in this fashion. So that is it. Let me know what you think about the books that I've talked about today, or if you have an answer to any of these that you feel strongly about that you want to share. Coming up later this week, Friday Reads is yet to be determined because we will be traveling, but I might try to do an on-the-road version. I'm not sure. So if I don't, I'll post something in the community tab. Otherwise, I will see you Friday or this weekend or when I get back. I hope that you have a great rest of your week. Take care. Bye-bye.